dependent on IT, information technology. However, it does have its drawbacks. However, it has its negative effects on our society. In order to look into the drawbacks of IT and also a proper utilization of IT, we have invited with us Mr. Muhammad Fahad Munir, who have a degree in information system from Nottingham, the University of Trent. And he's a Prince 2 registered practitioner, and he's been awarded as a Microsoft certified professional, and he also teaches IT classes and trains IT students. Mr. Fahad, welcome to Insight.
Thank you.
I would initiate our discussion in Insight today by looking into how much do we really depend on IT today?
Yeah, I mean, IT is all around us. We have IT even down to our, our watches. We have IT. Our clothes are designed with computer-aided systems. The cars we drive have mini computers in them. They're designed by computers in the manufacturing process. The food we eat comes from a plant, a manufacturing plant, which has IT. IT just controls everything we are in so much. Since mankind has moved from the Stone Age through to the Iron Age, through to the Industrial Revolution, nowadays we're living in the age of the information age, or the computer age, or the digital age, where we just cannot accept, we cannot escape the zeros and ones, the language of computers, which is binary.
Right. So basically we are completely dependent on IT for our day-to-day activity, day-to-day living.
That's right, yeah. I mean, in some cases we are over-dependent on IT, and relying too much on IT can have its negative drawbacks.
Right. Yeah. That's what we were, planning to look into.
Sure.
Not just looking at the drawbacks, provide our viewers with also how to properly use IT.
Sure.
Sometimes we are not utilizing it to its utmost sense. So can you point out to certain of the drawbacks in terms with some examples that we could look into IT these days?
Sure, yeah. I mean, some of the drawbacks in IT are, for example, if you look in the airline sector, in 1985,
right.
China Airlines flight 006, which was a 747, was traveling, and suddenly, as you know, a 747 has 4 engines, and one of the engines on the right flamed out, which means it stopped working. And so that meant that on the left hand side there were 2 engines working, and on the right hand side there was 1 engine. And the pilot wanted to sort of remedy what had happened, and so he put the plane onto autopilot, and doing so, the autopilot was in charge of the plane, and the pilot obviously wanted the plane to be in charge of the autopilot, and he wanted to concentrate on kick-starting or re-attempting to relight the engine which had flamed out. So doing so, the autopilot on that model unfortunately didn't control the rudder, which is in the tail, and it only controlled the flaps or the ailerons. And what was happening was the plane, the right hand side had less power, the left hand side had more power due to 2 engines, and so the plane was slowly drifting towards the right. And what this meant was that the computer autopilot was trying to correct and was trying to take the plane onto the left to get stable forward flight. And because the autopilot didn't control the rudder, which was the main sort of steering mechanism, this meant that the computer was giving less power to the left hand side, and in giving less and less power to the left hand side, the plane was in a stall, which meant it had too insufficient momentum to go forward. So this meant that the plane was crashing through the air at a great speed, just hurtling down like a big lead balloon, if you like. And the pilot was not in control of the plane, and to make matters worse, the plane went into thick cloud, and the pilot could not differentiate between ground and sky, And it was only when he got out of the thick cloud cover that he could see where the ground was, and he managed to regain control of the plane by switching off or disengaging the autopilot, and he managed to make a safe landing at San Francisco International Airport. And when it landed, the plane, due to the immense pressure, the wings had been torn off, they were in big pieces, and all of this came about relying on IT too much, the autopilot. And that's a grave mistake.
Right. In olden days, there used to be co-pilots.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, flight engineers.
Right.
So, for example, in an airplane, you would have the pilot, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer. And with the advancement of IT, the computer systems replaced the flight engineer, and this was done in 1972 on the Airbus Industries A300 plane, which was the first plane in the world to just totally replace a human role in IT. So that is one of the advantages.
But at the same time, you have this incident where
the autopilot,
the autopilot.
And
Right.
it's been on numerous occasions where pilots have put a plane on autopilot, and there has been a malfunction. That's right.
Right. But definitely there is a need of a pilot,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I don't
for
think.
takeoff and
Yeah,
landing.
yeah. I don't think at the moment autopilots are that advanced to actually land and take off themselves. But in the future, research is coming leaps and bounds, and to help pilots even make landing in thick fog, where they can't see where they're going. So all of that technology, I'm sure, within the next 50 years will be a reality.
Right.
I mean, and you've probably heard a few weeks ago there was a pilot who had a heart attack, midair, and I think one of the air cabin crew had to land the plane with instructions. So there is always a danger. You never know when God will take.
And this was because of the help of the IT.
Yeah,
That she was assisted with
right.
with the information
Yeah,
technology,
that's right.
and she was able to land safely.
Yes, that's right.
Right, right. And how? I mean, obviously, as it's in planes, when it comes about other day-to-day things that we are involved with.
Yeah.
What is the drawbacks of that? You see, in for example, computers. I mean, that's like the most. Thing that every person these days is involved with. It's like in olden days people used to say telephone was a luxury.
Yeah.
Then it became part of our life.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then computer became a luxury.
That's right.
But now computer is like part and parcel of our life.
Yeah, yeah.
So it does have an environmental effect.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it has a very harmful, negative environmental impact, and the environmental impact of computers is very wide-ranging. So, for example, let's say you have a factory in China which produces the original equipment, PC. It gets transported thousands of miles, let's say, to America or Europe, and it will be used in that country for 10 years. That will be the real sort of maximum life cycle of the appliance, and then it will be shipped back after 10 years back to China, and it will come into the fields, the rural parts of China or the third world, where you will have men, women, children, without masks, and they're earning $1.50 a day, and their job is to dismantle or demanufacture the appliance and sort of obtain the useful minerals. So, for example, they are pouring acid onto parts to get silver and gold. However, they're working in very toxic environments. Literally, they're polluting their own rivers. There's cadmium, beryllium, and mercury, which is very, very hazardous substances. And so all of these things are the hidden face of IT. If you look at the television adverts, you will see the latest 4-processor or 8-processor computer doing this and that and what have you, but they don't show you the actual suffering behind IT. So it's a real sort of forgotten world, and it's all come about with companies making profits. They put profits before people, and So that's the sort of current situation.
Right, but outwardly, when we look at it, it seems that it is something that you really have to have it. It will make you powerful.
That's right.
And if you don't have it, you're missing out. And at the same time, you might not really need it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's one thing. The other thing is, it is manufactured in such a way that it will last for 5 years, although it could last longer. But the market is so business oriented. Do you see that?
Yes,
as
that's
well?
right. Yeah, I mean, in fact, a study from Greenpeace International, they found that from 1997 to 2005, the life cycle of a normal computer was 6 years, and going towards 2005, it's now reduced to 2 years. So that means that you buy it on day one. After second year, you are in the position to change it due to software requirements, due to hardware requirements being much more rigorous, and it's all come about with advertising as well, where it sort of creates a void in your soul where you need the latest processor to do this and that, where really in reality for most of us we only need a computer for browsing the internet or for making a document here and there. We have very little use.
Right.
But it's just the demands to keep up in IT.
Yeah, well, talking about internet, I mean, how much of carbon emission is
yes.
given out with
Yes.
the usage of internet? Can you maybe give some data
Of
on
course,
that?
yeah,
and,
yeah, of
and
course,
our
yeah.
viewers will find out
Of course,
that
yeah.
when they are logging into the internet, they are completely. Do you think the public is really aware of the amount of damage that they are really causing to the environment?
No, I don't think they are. No. A prominent fact which has emerged is that when you perform a Google search, so you can do a Google search, you'll be actually emitting 7 grams of CO2 into the atmosphere. And if you perform just 2 searches, that's enough to boil your electric kettle of water, to make your tea.
Just two
searches.
Google search.
That's right.
Is that time duration is also is mentioned there, or no? Just 2
No,
Google
I think
search?
just 2 Google searches. That's
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you look, and it's not just Google searches, it can be any search engine. So you have Yahoo, you have MSN, you have Ask, you have lots and lots of others.
AOL.
Exactly, AltaVista, etc. But it's not just search engines. It is also just a normal website. If you're just viewing any regular website, www. You are actually looking at the screen, and the website, which the web pages are hosted on a server, and it's called a server farm because they have hundreds of servers lined up in a row, and they're emitting lots and lots of heat, and they need substantial amounts of air conditioning to cool them, and so they're having tremendous energy usages, which again is harming the environment.
Right. There's a thing called carbon print.
Carbon footprint. Yes.
Carbon footprint. Can you kind of look into so that our viewers are aware of this carbon footprint, which most of the big firms are utilizing these days? Not only that, but even cities and within cities you have these councillors, these people who really want to develop the city. They also utilize this data to really see how much of carbon footprint is of their city, so that what they can do in order to make less carbon emission in their city, so that there be fresh air.
Sure.
Can you give a bit of
carbon footprint basically is about reducing the amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and the more carbon dioxide you have into the atmosphere is making the global greenhouse gases, making that effect very bad, and that in turn leads to the depletion of the ozone layer, which goes into rising of the climate, and also in erratic climate sort of freaks of nature. So, for example, we've seen Hurricane Katrina, we've seen the tsunami in Indonesia. All of these events are going to happen with more and more intensity and frequency due to our emissions, because never before in the history of mankind have humans been living at a very fast pace, a speed in which you can do things that even few years ago you couldn't do. We can move as people in the past couldn't move in months. We can move in days. So, and due to the speed comes because we as human beings, we are very how can I put it? We are always sort of looking to save time.
Right.
As if we always
want it done next minute.
Exactly.
We can't really wait for anything.
And it's our sort of weight of expectation. So once, for example, we have, for example, a vehicle which can do this, we will look for the next sort of technological innovation which can even reduce time. And so all of these large effects are having a very profound negative impact on the environment.
Right.
And
the ozone is all that which is affected.
Definitely.
Is due to.
That's right, definitely.
Right,
yeah.
right. And I mean, as a computer, I mean, it's not just the internet, the usage of internet that is emitting carbon dioxide, but even the PC that I have, which I'm using it for personal use, such as Microsoft Word, maybe printing pictures or reading an article, saving data. Even that also emitting carbon dioxide, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So it's not just the internet.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, it's just the lifestyle that we're living in right now. There are some steps you can take to sort of dissipate or negate this.
Right, that's what we will look at at the conclusion of this program, the second part. We look into how to marginalize that, how to properly use them. But prior to that, I want you to kind of also about that in the space, which we don't really pay attention to much. Certain things we just pay attention here. That it's, but there are so many satellites being shot up in space, and they are orbiting our planet.
That's right.
And if a space station goes bad, it's just it's in the space hanging in there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, due to the due to the amount of space launches from this planet, there is so much debris floating, bits of old space stations, bits of old satellites. There is so much rubbish there that any satellite which is being used, for example, even to broadcast this TV program, can hit into it, and it will cause major disruption. You can imagine even something size of a rock hitting a solar panel will just will have massive repercussions.
Right.
So our space, the orbit around our planet is very, very congested.
Right, and that is it. The possibility of these things falling down
I don't think that's really a possibility due to the orbits. The orbits are so actually in effect. Yes, you're right. I mean, what's happening is in gravity in physics, the object is trying to come back to Earth, but because it's in its
speed,
orbit,
in a momentum,
it will carry on in that. It will only vary by a few millimeters every year. So that wouldn't happen for a very, very long time.
But the possibility do exist.
Yeah, the possibility. Yeah.
Right. The other advancement in IT and utilization of it, especially these days, probably military would be the first usage of it. Like, for example, the navigation system that we have. I mean, initially it was a military usage of navigators, a navigation system. But today we see that each and every car tend to have a navigation system, either built in or you go buy a navigation system to navigate you. Can you point out to the mishaps certain examples that you have come across?
Yeah, I mean, there have been many occasions where drivers have always relied on the instructions of their satellite navigation system a bit too much. So, for example, there have been instances where drivers have actually driven into a lake,
right?
Or they've.
What about the F-13?
F-35, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that is coming back onto our topic of today, which is drawbacks in IT.
Right.
So in IT, just to sort of the software or the program which controls, let's say, an airplane, or which is an operating system, has thousands of lines of code, or even millions nowadays.
Right.
And so it happened to be that on that plane, which is the world's most advanced plane, it's the 4th generation, in IT. And basically what happened was the date changed, or the hour changed, and this one line of code from the millions of lines of code, one line of code couldn't handle this, and so it shut down the satellite navigation. So the world's most advanced aircraft became just like an aircraft from the early ages, and so the pilot had to look at the coast to sort of have an idea of where he was, and in the end they had to sort of scramble another airplane, and he had to follow the airplane just like we do in a car all the way back to base.
Right. I think there are many other examples,
Sure.
like loss of life when there is a problem in IT.
Mm-hmm.
We'll look into that right after this short break. We are looking into the drawbacks of IT and the proper utilization of IT, especially in today's age, that where humans depend on IT for even their food that they are eating, the food that is processed obviously in the factories are basically relied on IT systems. We were looking at how a mishaps or a miscode reading of an aircraft makes that most advanced aircraft as an aircraft from the First World War or even before that. And also, Mr. Fahad, as you have said, that there is a miscalculation in the radar where it might point out to be a target, a military target, but it's a civilian target.
That's
that
right.
also happens.
That's
is
right.
that correct?
It does. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and there have been lots of occasions where this has happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And as you have pointed out, these are the drawbacks that we
That's
see.
right, yes.
But how, as an IT professional, how would you ask the viewers and inform us that how we can properly utilize this, because these are a part of ours, aren't they?
Sure. Do you mean in terms of saving energy?
That is right. Saving
Yeah.
energy, proper utilization of it. So much of internet search or the computers are emitting carbon.
Oh, yeah.
Not only just carbon, but other energies that are harmful for human beings.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, one of the best sort of piece of advice is, if you're looking for a new computer, it's always best to get a laptop instead of a desktop PC.
Laptop. Why being a laptop?
Because a laptop uses less energy than a desktop. That's the principal reason.
And is it an effect on the recycling of laptop is easier than the desktop? Is it
I think that's also a key, because obviously a laptop has a smaller profile. So obviously, being smaller, it's has less wastage, to put it very simply, and also it's more energy efficient in terms of the energy it uses is less than a desktop PC. Also, where possible, if you can start to use LCD flat screen monitors, they have obviously replaced the old ones, which were the bulky type, and the energy saving is quite significant. It's between 30 to 50%. So that is a lot of energy.
But what will happen to these bulky computers? And
well, yeah, I mean, like we talked in the first half of the show, they go back on the ship, back to these plants, and they're disassembled. Yes.
And I remember in 1970, when the computer first came out, obviously those monitors were not recyclable, weren't they?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if you only have to look at like an old film from the 70s or the 80s, and you see hundreds of all those old computers. Now, the computer in my watch is more powerful than a computer of that time. So it shows to you how fast IT is growing and progressing. And there's something called Moore's law, which is something like roughly, which is the speed of computing doubles every 10 years. And at the moment we are exceeding that. And the improvements in computing are going faster and faster. And the main issue is power consumption, and that comes from the heart of the computer, which is the CPU, or central processing unit. And it's about the amount of energy is required to cool it, because it produces so much heat, and heat, as you know, is a wastage. So that's why only 50% of the electricity which comes from your power socket to your computer is wasted as heat.
It's just gone wasted.
It's just wasted, that's right.
Right. And a laptop uses less of an energy.
Yeah, laptop is much
But
better.
there are certain products that when they are manufactured, they use more of an energy.
Definitely.
When they are manufactured.
That's right, yeah. And computers are a prime example. So for example, a computer uses 10 times its sort of resource in terms of fossil fuels and the actual making of the actual assembly of the computer in the first place. Your typical fridge, freezer or washing machine only has a 2 times impact. So if we compare a computer to a fridge freezer, we will see there's a 5 times difference, or a ratio of 5 to 1 in the terms of environmental impact.
So so a computer damages the environment.
Oh, it does,
obviously.
yeah. And due to the obsolescence. So obsolescence is the word which is about phasing out technology. So as we discussed, Greenpeace said computers are now going from a lifespan of 6 years down to 2 years. And so this obsolescence means that newer and newer computers are coming onto the marketplace, and they're being offered to you at the cheapest price as well. So the price makes it attractive, the advertising makes it attractive, the features makes it attractive, and you buy the new one and the old one gets recycled. And at the moment, not all computers parts are recycled properly or efficiently. And that's again what I'm coming to, short-term profits, long-term disaster.
So are you advising that it's better to stick to the old products if they are functioning properly?
Yeah, I mean, if you have no need to, for example, play the latest game, in 3D, or if you're not going to do video editing or music production or anything else like that, then something for which is fine. You can browse the internet, have some documents to work on. That's more than adequate.
Or maybe just upgrade the product that you have.
That's right. You can upgrade it. Yeah. Another trend in IT is cloud computing, and cloud computing is the term where, for example, it's totally changing how we use IT software. So for example, right now, currently, if I have to use the next version of any application, I will have to get the CD and I'll have to install it onto my computer, and in doing so it will say to me that, well, I'm not going to install on your machine because you need more RAM, you need more memory, that is, you need faster processor, you need a better video card, and I'm not going to install. Okay, so you get the new hardware which matches the software, and then you do it. Yeah. The future, which is called cloud computing, which is being introduced at the moment, in fact, by Google. So you have Google applications, which are a rival to Microsoft Office, and what it is that all you're doing to use those applications are you're going by a web browser only, and web browser you can get on any machine. Yeah, and the actual server will be hosting the application. So all the hard work will be done there. All you're doing is just visiting, just like a copy or a window from your machine, your old machine, which in IT terms is called legacy.
Right. So the server is doing the job,
The server is doing the job.
and you still have that your old computer that you
Exactly, exactly. And that's a trend which some companies are going to. So it will be quite interesting to see where that ends up.
Right, right. And so a laptop compared to what other helping or how to marginalize this?
Yeah. Other things you can do are, for example, if you're in Windows, you can turn off your hard drives after 15 minutes. There is a power management properties you can do. You can turn off the monitor after 15 minutes automatically, and you can do things like put the system in hibernation or standby, so it uses as little energy as possible if you're not using it, that is.
Shutdown would be the best option, isn't it?
A shutdown is always the best, and as you suggest, if you're turning off your PC, don't just shut it off by turning it off, but you should also unplug the plug from the wall as well.
Oh, so
Yeah.
even that will save energy,
It will,
just
yeah,
unplugging and turning it off from the socket itself.
It will, that's right, yes.
Right, right. So these little things do really compensate and help to the environment?
They do add up, yeah, that's right.
Right. And in relation to this was just about the computers and the other IT usage that we have today. How can we kind of curtail the negative effects of other IT usages, you think?
My own sort of example is that if my computer is doing my job for me, then I have no reason to upgrade it to the newest one. Typically, you get newer models coming on the market every few months, and there's never a good time to buy an IT, because whatever time you buy, the model you have and the features it has, it will always be, you'll always get a cheaper model within a few months after you buy it. So you're always on this sort of slippery slope where there's no good time to buy. So my advice is to buy, as good as you can, if you like. And if it's okay for your needs, that's fine. It will last you a long time.
Right. And is there, within the market, is there a money-making trend by the companies? As we mentioned earlier, some of the products are made in such a manner that it will last only for 2 years. Does that exist?
It does, yeah. Because manufacturers, before they release any products, they have something called obsolescence, which we referred earlier on.
Right.
And that is all about knowing how long the product will be in the marketplace, and then how long it will be used by the eventual end user, which will be yourselves, our viewers here. And they will know then there will be a date, which is a cut-off date, which most people will have it in for recycling.
Right.
And so everything is calculated.
The other thing is these people tend to socialize a lot on the internet.
That's right.
Facebook,
Yeah.
MySpace,
Twitter.
I mean, different sites.
Yeah.
And it's chatting and just sitting there and being glued.
Yes, yeah.
And which doesn't really kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And that individual who's glued to it is completely unaware of the amount of carbon emission, the amount of disrupt it is really causing to the environment.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I mean, all of these websites which you mentioned, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, these are all of the new trend of websites called Web 2.0, which is a new trend, which means that the internet, you can interact with other people on the planet more effectively. And what it's doing is people are psychologically more engaged in the online world rather than the real face-to-face world. So you'll find people are losing interaction in terms of,
their neighbors, their friends.
Exactly. And everyone is just switching into their mobile phones if you have web access, and it's having a detrimental effect. I'm sure you've heard of Second Life.
Second Life, yes.
That's right, yeah.
There was a class I'm taking in the University of Exeter, and they were promoting Second Life, where a person have his own life in a computer.
That's right.
Where he gives name, he gives, Does that is that harmful?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and well, it's no surprise. It is harmful because yourself living as another character in a virtual world,
Right.
you use the same amount of energy as someone living in Brazil.
A real
a real person living in Brazil. That's right.
A real person living in Brazil, the amount of energy he uses
from your character in Second Life.
From your virtual character that you have created in Second World.
That's Second Life.
Second Life.
That's right.
Second
Yeah,
Life.
that's right. Yeah.
So basically, it's a complete. I mean, it's a waste of energy.
It is. It is. That's right. Yeah.
You know, you're really depriving that much amount of energy for another individual.
You are. That's right.
Right.
I mean, again, that comes back to what we were saying. The more human beings are getting more I call advanced, then the more we are actually harming the environment, and it's the path that we're taking. We are harming the environment.
Right. The other types that could be pointed, is there like a computer that is used by solar energy?
I don't think that's been
yet.
That's come about yet. I mean,
Right.
you have solar cars, even.
Right.
But solar energy is definitely a very useful way of dissipating the negative effects, because it's coming powers from the sun only, and it's not doing anything. The manufacture of solar panels is very it's not harmful as well to the environment. So it's a very clean and very green form of energy supply.
And the fans, the wind.
Yeah, turbine power.
Turbine
power. That's right. Yeah, you have a lot of turbine power nowadays, and especially in Middle Eastern countries where there's a lot of sun around. I mean, people complain it's too hot, but if you look at it from one angle, it's too hot. If you look at it from the other angle, that's your free power source. So that's why in, for example, countries like Saudi Arabia, they have acres of desert land which have just solar panels, which, like for example outside Riyadh, they are feeding all the electricity. So it's about using it for your advantage rather than as a disadvantage.
Right. And the mobile technology also have the
wind up.
Wind.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, wind up. Nowadays you have wind up sort of mobile phone chargers. So if your mobile phone has lost charge, then you can actually just wind it up, and I think inside the mechanism has two rocks which rub against each other, and the friction causes electricity, and that's quite useful for places where there is not electricity in close supply. And also you have wind up torches, and you have wind up radios as well, and there are lots of appliances which are using this sort of manual to electric sort of method.
Right, in order for the protection of the environment.
That's right.
How about these hybrid cars? What do you think of this?
Yeah, hybrid cars are very sort of, how can I say, controversial. I mean, for example, there is a certain hybrid car which is quite popular on the market, in the world market that is, and it's a hybrid system, which means it's half-half. So it's half using petrol, half using electric motors. And the actual fact of the matter is that the manufacture of this car is so harmful to the environment that even if the car was used for a long time, it would not negate the effects of making the car in the first place. And it's not just the car, it's actually the batteries which go into the car right now.
And the recycling of it must be a problem as well, probably.
It's a very big problem, that's right, yeah.
Once to scrape that car, it might have been difficult.
Yeah.
Now coming back to our IT, as we were looking at this, were like certain of the things that we have discussed in margin that could be of use for our viewers. Coming back to IT, can you sort of point out other less usage would really benefit certain ways of less using energy in computers, in mobile technology? Even now, even the mobile have computers in
it. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that, as I said, the path we're living, or the lives we're leading right now, is that we're making it very hard to sort of come away from IT. We are falling back on IT more, and we're using it more and more. I mean, even with mobile phones, which have the internet built in, we're being encouraged by the media to in fact to Google search or to do a website search for anything you don't know. So if you're walking in the street and you see a car that you've never seen before, to quickly do a Google search about it so you know about it. Or if you see a bird, a species which you've never seen, or an insect, or to do this or to do that, it gives you a whole world of knowledge instantly. But to negate that is the environmental effect.
Right. The better option would be asking, looking into books.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Library.
That's right. That's right.
Tend to use less and less.
That's right. That's right.
Control use.
Exactly. Personally, I mean, if I have a book which I have online on the internet or on computer disk, I always prefer and try to get the real book in paper, because it's very nice and portable, and it's the energy required to make the book is little compared to the amount of energy you'll be spending hours and hours online in reading the book. And they're doing technology is going so that we have sort of flat panels, and you have sort of like a newspaper which is just like a flat panel which you can sort of browse and things like that. But all of these require energy. For a book you don't need any energy, and I always prefer a book.
They have this new Palm, like what book they call that? What
Palm book?
The Palm book.
Yeah.
Where it's like a book.
Yeah, that's
Does
right.
it contains more than one books, or is it?
Oh
like
yeah. I mean, you need to download the files from the internet, and you can read anything you want in it. Yes.
Right. So it's basically where one is given too much of information and too much of choices, where that really confuses one, and eventually ends up reading one book, but using enormous amount of energy.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. that could be that a person could just really take one book with him, on an airplane.
That's
or
right.
when he's
I mean, it's funny you mentioned airplanes again. In the IT industry and in America, IT servers, the big computers which are at the heart of all the businesses, they're using about 1.5 to 2% of the country's national energy. And it's using more energy than the aircraft industry in America.
So can you repeat that again?
In America,
right,
the IT servers,
right,
which are the big computers,
right.
So we're not looking at the home market.
Right.
They're using more energy than the aircraft industry.
In the whole world?
Oh, no, of America.
Of America.
Yeah.
So the IT servers are using more energy.
That's right.
So
and they forecast to use more and more and more as we go in the future.
Right. That's pretty interesting in IT. As a person, obviously you have a laptop or a computer, and what system do you have?
I have a very old system.
Because these are the things that really affect.
Yeah.
Because you are in IT, you are an expert in it, you are a professional in it. So it's really good to know that what type of system you use. People will be thinking that you are using the most top of the line.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends of mine who are not in IT, and they are gadget freaks, or they love gadgets. So, for example, they always want the latest accessory, the latest watch, the latest computer, the fastest one, and even when I was going through my IT degree at university, for my first 2 years I had a Pentium 1, and it did the job for me fine. Internet browsing and making the sort of office documents, etc. That was fine. And then when I came into my last year, I was required to use programming languages, and unfortunately my computer couldn't execute the programs very fast. So for for a small task, I would have to wait 15-20 minutes and be doing nothing. And in my sort of time was money. So I had to buy a new computer then, and that was able to deal with those things which took 20 minutes into 20 seconds, literally. That was the advancement. And then when I left university, I still had that machine for another 5 years.
Right.
and
at the moment,
until it totally crashed out.
right. And finally, at the moment, because we are running out of time, the Windows type of Windows that you use.
Oh, my Windows is 10 years old.
Oh, all right, but still running
It's still
fine.
running fine, yeah.
It does the job for you.
It does the job for me, yeah.
No XP, no.
Oh, no. I'm happy with where I am, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for
Thank you
joining
for having
us.
me. Thank you.
Nice to have a discussion with you on IT, and I hope our viewers have benefited from this discussion, and not only just listening to the discussion, but at the same time implementing and taking care of the environment that they are living in. It is quite important to know that every internet search and the computer that we are using is really badly affecting the environment, and we have to control that, use it properly, so that everyone can benefit. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.